Good afternoon, West Michigan. This is Tap In Podcast. My name is Pamela Keim, co-hosting with Stephanie Kolakowski. I am from Grand Tap Media, and she is from Grow Business Today. And she is going to share with us the spirit of our podcast. So take it away, Steph.
We're so great to be here. This is our third podcast, and we really haven't talked about why we got together or how we got together. But Tap In is all about tapping into the behind the scenes of the people, community, and things that you guys want to know. So many times we lack access or maybe the opportunity to sit on a stage like this, and we really want to be those people that get behind the scenes and get to the bottom of what you want and need to know.
Well, Stephanie's going to be asking all the questions you would ask on the media, you know, if you were being interviewed or on social media. And I'm going to be asking a lot of the questions that people ask me behind closed doors when we find out who we're interviewing. Ask this person this, ask this person that. They're kind of afraid to kind of ask it in public. So I'm going to be happy to do that because that's what I do.
You're amazing at that. So what I love about this and a little bit about my background and then Pam's background is I come from the last 16 years in broadcast media and television. So I was the director of sales and local programming for the Fox affiliate here in Greater Grand Rapids for 7 years, and then the director of sales and marketing and radio for Town Square Media, and I worked in iHeart. And during that time, got to meet a lot of really interesting people and and understand kind of like the behind the scenes of the business side of things and how to put on a great show. And Pam is an amazing host who now is over 2 years of Grand Tap Media.
Yeah, always going on my third season.
Yeah.
All my friends have been out there. Thank you for all my fans. And trying to grow. So I met Stephanie, and then we collaborated together. She realized that she could help me grow Grand Tap Media Business TV, and then all the great internet friends that I've made over the last 4 or 5 years. And some of them are coming your client, which is kind of exciting, isn't it?
Yes, it's great, and it's a testament to working together to lead, change and opportunities and grow together.
Because everybody wants to grow during this pandemic.
Yes.
Everybody wants to pivot.
Yes.
And that's what the show is basically, is helping people pivot during this COVID situation, which we don't know how long it's going to last, do we?
Yeah. And what's going to be great about this too is, like, Pam and I, we see a lot of things similar, but we also have different points of views of world, policy, business, but yet we're really good friends, and we respect each other. And
I'm older and wiser, so I know what, I'm serious.
You lived a lot, yeah.
So we become, our age difference brings a lot to the podcast.
Yeah.
I see things I've experienced. I've lived West Michigan my whole life. And so, some of the things I've gone through, and you're being younger, some of the newer generation, what's out there, what's new. So I'm always like, what are you doing? She goes, this is she's always explaining to me, this is what they're doing out there now. I'm like, oh, good, because I can't keep up on, a lot of us can't keep up on what's new. Yeah. And the technology as we're older, correct?
Yeah. And you're teaching me too about things that in our generation we forget. We get so involved in the technology and doing things, quick and efficiently that personal relationship. One thing I love about Pam is she sends cards for everything. So like big events in your life or Christmas cards or all these things that, we don't get personal cards anymore.
I know it.
And little simple things like that make a world of difference.
I grew up on that, and I do it with all my friends, and it's really has built great, much better relationships when somebody gets a card and seeing a picture of an event that we just went together or saw, or just a great picture I saw on social media. I'm like, this is it. This is a great picture, and send it to them, and they're able to put it on their refrigerator or on their mantle, and they're like, oh my God, I have a few of my cards. I'm thinking, so it has helped build relationships, start relationships a little bit deeper. Yeah. And then I love sending you cards.
I appreciate them so much. And pictures last a lifetime, and there's something about holding it instead of just clicking through it that is special.
Well, with social media, we can go through our feed and we look back and all these pictures that we forget that what happened and who we were with. And I think it's a great way to just, when people come over, they see themselves on the mantle of some of our pictures, and I get goosebumps when I see myself in another picture on the mantle.
Yes.
So let's talk about, before our guest gets on, really let's delve into really what we want to do is helping businesses and things with this podcast.
Yes, helping businesses, making sure we're providing a platform to get information out. with both businesses and how people can start businesses to what businesses are here locally are making waves and making a difference that we can support, all the way to things like, you know, sharing lived experiences and stories of people who have overcome adversity to start businesses and their journeys. You know, I believe in vulnerability, and I know Pam is stepping into believing in vulnerability because, again, generationally, I think that my generation, we grew up in like the feel, right? I feel this way, we feel this way, social impact, making sure that we're doing things, you know, that are like green is important to us, you know, we're all these things, and Pam's generation is more like you keep things behind closed doors, which is why I'm really excited, you know, feelings and, you know, was in the family stays with the family, and we can't share weakness because if we do, it's a sign of we can't be leaders if we are vulnerable, and that's so not true nowadays.
It's not true, and so I didn't, like, if I have shared this in the public already, that I didn't do as well as I was hoping on the first shutdown. It just took me by storm, and nobody knew back in March it was going to last this long. So, and watching my friends' businesses, people hanging on by fingernails, and especially the ones that our friends that own restaurants, and not being able to, you know, have people come in, and her and Stephanie and I being huge networkers, all of that gone, not seeing your friends for months, only on maybe social media. So I'm so glad that I was able to talk to her about it, but I understand. I said, I can't say that in the public. I can't tell people that in the public. But now I'm kind of like, well, it is. It feels like it's a lifetime now. Summer, isn't it?
I know, and it's been really cool because look at all the people you connected with sharing your story. We were just doing interviews with even the Kent ISD, and you were sharing. I see even like you opening up, and the questions that you're asking are so cool because you're going back in time to saying like, oh, I remember, and you know what? Yeah, in school, I was the same way. I was not a traditional learner in school. Something like this, the studio space, did not exist for me, but I would have loved the opportunity to be hands-on and learn something I was really passionate about, right? Right. And you're the same way. And
I would have never known I was able to do anything like this until I got stepped in front of the camera and just practiced. So for all you out there that think this is, you know, like we're just naturally, and it took a lot of practice. And I still am getting coaching on how to better present myself, how to better ask questions. Like Stephanie's really great at writing them down. And do I look down and always at them? Probably not. So I'm like, so we kind of compliment each other. These are what the things we need to cover. And that's what we wanted to do together is bring businesses, people not even in our area, and show you what, and especially to show you what's in West Michigan. Because we had Andy on from the Grand Rapids Chamber, and realizing what he had to offer us.
Absolutely, and I mean, he opened up a whole world that I didn't even know, you know, about things that they're doing and how they're really taking and innovating in these times, especially with local restaurants and being intentional on the policy that they're fighting for us, you know, in Lansing for the businesses.
Because sometimes we don't know that we don't feel like that one. Oh my gosh, our desk is coming on.
So, so we're going to transition now, and we're super excited. So today we have pretty much a superstar and somebody that I respect a heck of a lot. Hello, Mike Cline, Avi Cline. I see you there,
We're going to introduce him. So
we're going to introduce you, sir.
We're excited. You know.
So Mike Cline, he is a radio host, personality, director of operations, program director, and of course, podcaster himself with his podcast, My Jewish Family. And Mike Cline, he started with a dream, like many people do, at a very young age. And in high school, got into working at a local radio station. And by the time he's now in his 40s, can I say that, Mike?
I don't know if I'm close to that yet.
Well,
he ended his career.
Move your camera up because you're cut off on our end.
Am I? Okay.
Face. There we go.
I mean, you have a beautiful chin, darling, but we wanted to see
you want to have that one.
But he has worked at places and ended up at Z100. So went from a dream at age 18 to actually hosting at Z100, the top radio station in the country.
See, I learned that from stuff too.
Welcome, Mike Cline. Welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, hang on here. I'm trying to get my computer's not working right now.
Wow. Now we know.
I look at, he's got the fancy microphone, everybody. He's all dialed in, and
It's not working though, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So while you're getting it to work, I was going through and I saw you are always, Access News follows you, right? Like, and when you left your last gig, I was like, oh my gosh, now he's lost in this podcast, my Jewish family, my Jewish parents, and
Yeah,
Access Hollywood or Access News is covering it. Look at you, Mike Cline. Tell us about it.
Well, that's kind of like something I've always wanted to do. My parents are always like very hilarious to me, and they're always cracking me up all the time. And I've always like kind of want to do a podcast with them. So when the pandemic hit, it kind of seemed like it was like the perfect time. Like a lot of people are doing these podcasts right now.
Absolutely.
Well, and they're very popular, and especially that's what we wanted to do. And I wish I would have pivoted a little bit and did more of the podcast to kind of like a journey through this first COVID we went through instead of having instead of isolating myself, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if everybody else feels the same way, but it's kind of, I wish I would have done it back in June, July, August.
Yeah.
And a little different now. We're in a better place.
Yeah. I think vulnerability is the word of 2020, Mike Cline. You know what I mean? So tell us a little bit about your journey in 2020 and how you have been vulnerable and have pivoted during this pandemic.
Well, radio is ever changing. I was in Greenville, South Carolina, running 4 radio stations there, and I got cut in the beginning of April during the pandemic. So I moved back to Maryland and kind of looking at the next opportunities that could be happening. I'm working a lot with podcasting now. And, there's opportunity to do a lot more stuff in radio, but in radio we had to move around a lot, but radio is changing now where you can live anywhere and be remote. I mean, like a lot of the future footprint with a lot of companies, not just radio, is, scaling down their offices and people working from home. Well, radio people are doing the same thing. So a lot of radio DJs that you hear in your car right now are probably broadcasting from their houses, from their couches. And that's kind of like the future.
Absolutely. You bring up a great point, how much the shift is happening, and really people taking a step back in radio land, right, in corporate America, and saying, wow, we have all of this talent, and operationally they're getting it done from their home offices. Do you see this being a way of the future, and radio as we know it is going to change forever?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there'll be, like if you listen to your favorite morning show, they may be a little bit harder to do a morning show at home. I know there are a lot of radio stations that are doing morning shows at home. It sounds a little crazy on the radio. And they're actually using Zoom. I know in New York City at Z100, the Elvis Duran morning show, they have a huge cast. They got like 10 or 11 people on their show, and they're all on Zoom. And one guy's back at the radio station. They're all at home. And, it sounds good on the radio, but, right now everyone's kind of stuck at home, and we're in a pandemic mode right now. So it's kind of very relatable to be in that situation.
Well, do you think, okay, so one thing I noticed with the new technology out there, which it pushed me probably 5 years. People are saying they've been pushed in technology 5 years ahead. They normally were resistant, like I was. And now we're able to reach out to people outside our community. We don't have to have them come in, pay the cost from the, be here, be on the show, physically. We can just zoom in to theirs, and I mean, cost efficient too, where people aren't traveling as much to come on these shows.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. And, there's been a lot of artists during this whole, because artists can't do any kind of live stuff right now too. So a lot of radio stations have been doing IG lives with artists and stuff like that. I know Jason Derulo did something big with, he's got some viral video going on right now, and he got all the radio stations to jump on there and be a part of his new viral video.
That's cool.
I know there's a lot of radio stations out there that have had a lot of interviews with Selena Gomez on IG, and a bunch of other artists have been doing that with some radio stations. So that's kind of an interesting, unique way. So everyone's just kind of trying to find their space.
Yeah. Well, you think that I look at this as a great opportunity for even reaching out to more upper scale kind of guests, because they may be at their home, not traveling, not doing concerts, not doing trainings, whatever they all do. So I'm looking at people that I would love to interview. I'm going, I just reach out to them, and maybe they'd be available for 30 minutes because they're at home, right?
I mean, Justin Bieber doesn't do any interviews, but he interviewed with like 30 stations. I think back in May or June or something like that. He was
Yeah.
on 30 stations because, on their IG accounts.
Yep.
Because, with their jocks, their DJs.
Right.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point too with that. Like they are, and everyone's looking at, and we're being vulnerable. You see,
Right.
you see stars, our personalities, our on-air personalities in radio and television. There was already kind of a struggle with separation. Now it's like, you know what? I am who I am. I know I have I'm being paid to be this, but you know what? I'm going to let down my shield a little bit, and
Right.
I'm going to step into that vulnerable space. And now you see all these crazy, great, awesome, innovative things happening, and people connecting like they never have before. I think sometimes we get so focused on the negative of the politics and policy going on that we're missing, like, look at all the really cool stuff that's happening as a result of this disaster in far as connectivity in different innovative ways.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of cool how everyone's kind of getting together and trying to figure out how to do this stuff. I think it's amazing is my mom, who's like, I think she's like 77, 76. I hope I don't get in trouble for this. But she literally, like, I don't know how to text. I don't do emails. I don't know any of this stuff. She couldn't use AIM back in the day. Now I'm calling her, I'm like, hey, Mom, let's do the podcast. I have a Zoom call right now. I'm like, oh my, she has like 1,000 Zoom calls. She knows how to use Zoom clearly better than me as we're learning today with my expensive equipment that's not working correctly. But she's always on a Zoom call, doing a Zoom exercise, a Zoom support group, a Zoom everything. And she's even doing Zoom therapy because she's a therapist. I mean,
Yes.
I never see my mom ever doing that. I never thought that she would be great with any technology. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your mom is so funny. Avi does a great impression. Can you do the impression? Oh, Avi. Do it.
She'll get punched because I don't understand why you're not married already. You're not married. I don't understand. That's actually not how she sounds. But I did that in front of her mother, my grandmother back in the day, and my grandmother made me do that impression of her all the time in front.
But you're right. You're talking about doing counseling calls online now. We actually, our guest last week, she launched during the pandemic her company, which does the telehealth, behavioral health virtually.
Yeah.
And she's kind of cool. I mean, she was on the spectrum for autism. She did a whole bunch of education work with GVSU, and then she's been working on this project for 4 years, and the pandemic was a blessing to her business. It took off. She was way far ahead of, hey, one day we're going to need to do this. Where people get to be on their own couches and do therapy and go through the same process. So that's cool. Is your mom a therapist, Avi?
Yeah, she's a licensed clinical social worker, so she's a marriage counselor.
Oh, nice.
So,
Okay.
So this whole, like, why am I not married by now,
That's a problem.
I tell my kids that too. I'm like, come on, So, all right, so you're doing this interview through your office now, out of your home, or where?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And now, that must have been a really big transition to being at a studio or whatever. How, for some of the people that are forced into their homes and having to separate, compartmentize your home, business, and not be a workaholic, because a lot of us turn into workaholics when we are in our home working. So how are you handling all this?
Well, fortunately, I'm not working a lot right now, so that's very easy to maneuver around. But I think, for me, it's hard for me to get motivated sometimes, and when you're at work, you have to force yourself to get motivated, and so I just think for me, it's probably going to be difficult. Like, so when I get back into a full-time position somewhere doing remote, it probably may be hard, where I may catch myself going, I just can't do it right now, and then catch myself at 10 or 11 o'clock at night doing it, which a lot of people are doing. I know during this whole COVID thing, that they're, remote is great and all, but some people can't do it, and they have a hard time doing it because they end up doing it all hours of the night. So maybe they're off for a couple hours, and so it can be healthy, non-healthy. You have to set boundaries for yourself. It's important to set boundaries of when you're going to work, and make sure that you're working the whole time that you're supposed to be working, and that and not up till 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
I think don't most people have bursts of their creativity juices, or their I guess sometimes if I'm working too much during the after 8 o'clock, pretty soon I'm like, by 10 o'clock, I'm picking up speed, and I should be getting ready to, down my time to go to bed. You know what I mean? But here I am at 11 o'clock at night just working like I don't know if Stephanie does that, how that all works. But we're all kind of different, right? On that one.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's hard. Some people can do it, and we're learning that some people can, some people can't do it at all. Now, I feel bad for people that have multiple kids in their house and they're trying to work because their kids are just making it difficult for them to work.
Right.
Like if I had kids, you know, I don't have any kids, but if I had kids, I would be the worst. I mean, because I would probably be so like unfocused. I mean, I'm already unfocused half the time anyways. So having kids would probably be more of a distraction for me. Now, so, you know, I definitely feel bad for anybody that has families and they're stuck at home with their kids as well.
Absolutely.
And for their kids, I feel bad because they probably don't mean to, you know, bother each other either, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a time where it's like I feel for my daughter who's trying to navigate. You know, we're lucky that her school system has stayed open most of the time this side of the school year. But in the beginning of the year, virtual learning, it was so tough. And like my heart goes out to the kids, you know, who are having to try to figure out at 10 years old, how do I do Zoom? How do I log into a Google Classroom? How do I keep up with assignments? My internet doesn't work. How do I put in the code? You know, all these things that your heart kind of goes out to them. I think again, when we talk about vulnerability and like just stepping back and the ability to say, okay, everyone's having a hard time right now, you know?
Right.
Everybody's having to do things differently, which is challenging. And so giving people some grace, right? Like, and working together to network. So I was happy that we connected this past week. And I was thinking maybe you could, actually right here in the studio today, Ferris, a senior from Ferris University, is helping us with this podcast. And so his goal is to get in, you know, to production and newsroom and potentially radio. And you have really a cool story and a cool journey, and I know it's a long one, but could you give us kind of the overview of how you got started, the why behind everything?
You mean like way back in the day, like how
you were young, so you're an inspiration to kids that are looking to get started in the industry.
So when I was 12 years old, I won $107 off my favorite radio station in Washington, D.C. And when I went to go pick up the money, they gave us a tour. And I kind of saw that, like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. This is cool. At that point, I wanted to do radio. And, you know, I had to wait till I was 14, but I got 14, I got an internship at the biggest hip hop station in Washington, D.C. Then I went to NPR as an internship. And by the time I was 16, I was able to get on the radio in a small town out of D.C. called in Winchester, Virginia. And I was able to be on the radio there while I was still in high school for a couple of years. And then did some college as I was working in my first job in Richmond, Virginia to Norfolk, Virginia, and just been kind of moving around to cities. So it's been kind of interesting.
And we met in Norfolk. So I got my first radio gig in Norfolk. And like Mike, I took off from Kalamazoo after my first 2 years of college and was blessed to have an opportunity at Sinclair Communications. But I had to make a choice if I was going to continue my classes at ODU or if I was going to jump in to radio. And I said, this is an opportunity of a lifetime to get started someplace like this. And in Norfolk, that was kind of an interesting town because it was a military town.
Right.
And so there was a lot that you had to think about when you were on air or when you were creating content and understanding there's a lot of transition and transit. What can you say about Norfolk that stuck out in your mind about innovation and programming?
I think Norfolk was an interesting city. And what I mean is, like, I lived in Richmond, and Richmond's really cool, but Richmond wasn't as friendly because everyone there is from there. And Norfolk was this big melting pot, not necessarily of cultures, but of different people around the U.S. And so everybody was kind of forced to become friends with each other. So, and everybody was super social. So it was kind of a unique town. You know, it's based off the military. That's all the big business there. I think what the Dollar Tree may be based out of Chesapeake, Virginia, which is a part of that area. There's not a lot of, like the biggest industry there is mainly the Navy. So it's a unique concept. When you're in broadcasting, like you want to adapt to each city and how to relate. So the USS Enterprise was one of the big ships that used to go out, the big aircraft carriers that used to go out all these years, or used to go out for 6 months at a time. Right. And so I would be there broadcasting when they returned. And that was a unique way that we did that. Matter of fact, I left that same radio station came back 7 years later to run it, and I was there for their last their last deployment. So some of the people remembered me from back in the day, what was this kind of unique thing that, but that's what you want to do. Like,
well,
you want to.
I've got to check because we know we're very good friends with former captain of the USS Ronald Reagan, Captain Tom Burke, and I'm sure if you were back in.
I don't know if that was out of that area. Yeah, I'm not sure where that was that in Norfolk?
Yeah, I believe it was. I believe so.
Okay.
I was out that way, but anyways, I should ask him about that. And he's locally here, and Stephanie has met him. Yeah. So what a small world that is. But he was there on the, like I said, he was the captain of the USS Ronald Reagan. Yeah. And, on that one. So they talk about that area, on that things like that. So that's very interesting. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about. I would like to ask is businesses that you've been in radio for a long time. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people out here in businesses. Everybody's trying to pivot. Everybody's trying to utilize, I guess, like social media, YouTube, podcast. How can you share with us what you think, the radio business could do for businesses to grow, right? Yeah. I mean, how do they get their services out there?
Well, with radio, I think it's super important to understand, like with radio stations, that they have big names, big brands, and just don't look at them just as a radio station. Look at them as an actual brand. Like in your market, what's your big station in your market again?
97.9 WGRD with free beer and hot wings in the morning.
Yeah. That's a great example. Like free beer and hot wings. That's a huge morning show around the country, actually. Yeah. Not just in your town, but they're based out of your town. So I use the talent from these radio stations in your local cities to kind of endorse your products, whether you have them on a podcast, whether you have them endorsing on a commercial, or you have them at your store with a social media Instagram live or a post, or have them come out and interview people on the store's Instagram live, and just like taking these big radio talents and integrating them into your products. Absolutely. I think that's always what we see, I think, works the best with radio advertising, I think, and the best way to cut through. I mean, am I right about that, Stephanie?
Absolutely, 100%.
What about influencers? I mean, there's when you hear that word on YouTube or on social media, are people moving towards that to get their? I hear that people are like, you got to find out who your main influencers are in your area, and they're like becoming famous, right?
They're the largest. Radio and television personalities are the largest influencers, and they're brand ambassadors. So when we were in radio and we were, selling, for lack of a better word, the value of local content, your radio personalities and your television personalities are it. I mean, they're a trusted source for news content, right, Mike?
Right, yeah.
And their followings are huge. And, ideally, like now with podcasting, I mean, we have a local podcaster here, and I'll give him a plug, Eric Zane, who I worked with in radio as well. He's got 84,000 subscribers on his podcast.
Yeah.
And so you look at this, and it's opportunity for anybody, really, to take a look from the people who have the wisdom and have worked in certain fields to say, I could do that too, but I've got to follow the process, right? And really be willing to put myself out there. Because once you put yourself out there, there's no turning back, right, Cline? Like, Mike Cline, you can find stories all kinds of places on Mike Cline, right? Like,
yes, for better or for worse.
Yeah. Okay, so we have only a few more minutes. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, so speaking of stories, let's ask a couple, if you would be obliged to share some of the funniest or most memorable stories in dealing with, because you've rubbed elbows and had dinners and done back of the scenes after concerts with some of the most famous people in the world, for lack of a better way to describe it, really. Who were some of your favorite celebrities, and what were some of your favorite memories?
I mean, there's been so many. I mean, Jay-Z was an amazing interview back in the day, and I totally got the wrong information about him, and he totally embarrassed me on the radio, but in a funny way. I thought he was changing his name. It said this, he goes, where are you reading that? It's right here. And he goes, oh, well, then that's real. I'm trying to think. There's so many unique moments when I've met people. Billie Eilish, who's really hot on the scene right now. We went and met her back in the I think like 2 years ago in the summertime in Atlanta, as she was doing a small show there, and we went there. We had to get in line to meet her, and I didn't, and I think she was 17 at the time. I didn't want to hug her. I was like, she grabs me and hugs me, and I'm like, well, what? It was, anyways. So she's super cool, very well respected in radio. I mean, to radio. Katy Perry. She would, every time she released her album, she would fly in all the radio DJs just to listen to the album, and she hung out and listened to us, and she called me Jay Leno because I have a big chin.
That is very interesting. Yeah,
That's fun.
Do you find it interesting when they come to your studio and they are famous, but that they look to you to get them through this interview, and they're kind of vulnerable they are, right?
Yes.
I mean, and they're looking for you to give them that, I did okay, right? Here they are, famous. It's like, do you ever notice that? It's kind of, you're the loser.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Pharrell or whatever, I can't say his name right.
Pharrell, yes, from Virginia Beach, boy.
I stutter every now and then. It's very weird, just like our president does, but that's okay. Pharrell from Virginia Beach, I don't know if you know him. He does the song Happy, big song. He wanted to be famous in his own town, so he used to come up to me and go, man, make me famous here. And I'm like, dude, you're already famous around the world. Nobody
I know, isn't that cool to ask, make me famous, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I used to run into him at IHOP like at 2 a.m. God knows why I was there at 2 a.m. But I run into him at IHOP all the time. So he started coming and hanging out at clubs that I would come host at, and just hang out and meet people, and just like all the time. It was kind of a unique situation. And he paid it forward years later at that same radio station. He did a concert for our radio station at a very inexpensive price, what was pretty amazing. But he was pretty interesting, and that was probably the one more memorable person that I've met.
So, when we wrap this up, so Mike, what are you looking for? I mean, you said you're going to be out there finding another position. I mean, for people watching, what exactly would you like?
I'm kind of open to pretty much anything, I was an operations manager for 4 radio stations, program director on air in major cities. I'm just kind of looking to have fun and being a part of a brand and being part of something that people really care about and passionate about. And that's, so looking for people that are passionate. That's what I want to work with next, is people that are passionate. And that's why radio is a lot of fun, because there's a lot of people that have a lot of passion for what they do.
Well, with podcasts and stuff. So you got your podcast out, Jewish Parents.
So,
I mean, how long is the podcast when people listen? And where can they find that?
It's it's anywhere from about a half an hour to about 20 minutes to a half an hour. It's called My Jewish Parents, and you can get on Apple Podcasts or wherever you go for your podcasting. It's on all the platforms right now.
All right.
So you can
put it out weekly, monthly? What do you do? How do you put it out?
Weekly. That's weekly. There's probably about 30 episodes on there right now.
Wow.
So it's
we're already on our third. This is our third.
There's our
fourth?
third. Yeah. So people can tap in by going. Do you have a hashtag or anything? Give us the link real quick.
They're on Instagram too. They're on Instagram. Oh, you mean mine? Or
yours.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay, forget them. Forget the parents. They're trying to get money off this. They keep asking for pay. By the way, they're the hardest people ever to work with is my parents.
I believe it.
My mom's always, I have a Zoom call. I can't do it right now.
So how can people tap in and get a hold of Mike Cline?
At Mike Cline Radio on Instagram and TikTok. Mike Cline Radio.
Mike Cline Radio on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you so much
for being with us.
You're
and
awesome.
Learning about it. I've got to hear your Jewish parents, only because I want to hear your mother.
Yeah,
I sound like a Jewish
definitely.
mother. I'm on my kids all the time whenever they come. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? They love me.
They love him.
Yeah, that's why they're not spending the holidays with me.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Mr. Mike Cline, and we wish you all the success in the future. And who knows, hopefully we'll collaborate together as well again very soon.
Definitely.
All right. Nice to meet you.
Nice
Thank you so much. Have a fabulous, I guess, can we say holiday? When you're out there.
Yeah, you just celebrated Hanukkah Friday.
Hanukkah? Holidays? What do we say?
I have 2 more days of Hanukkah. It
2 more
ends
days
Friday.
of Hanukkah.
All right. I kind of figured that, but I thought.
I Googled that, by the way. 'Cause we don't,
but you guys celebrate New Year, right? New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, right? That's a holiday, right?
All right. See you
Take
later.
care.
Merry Christmas to you guys.
Bye-bye.
Well, Well, everybody, thank you for joining us today on Tap In Growth Podcast. It's always fun to hear about people who are taking a dream and making them a reality. 12 years old, getting started with the dream of radio.
He was really interesting, and we look forward to getting that out, and we look forward to promoting him and showing some of the fabulous people that we've been connecting with that don't even live in our community. So if you know anybody that, if you don't think it has to be in West Michigan, but maybe in other states that could bring some value and teach our businesses and people in our community how they can thrive, please contact us.
Yes. Happy holidays, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.